Jai Baba to you all. Welcome to this observance of beloved Baba's dropping of his body 55 years ago today. Debbie and I will be your co-hosts. Our program includes readings, music videos, and a talk by Peter Nordeen. Following our hour-long program, we'll have an informal sharing of Amartithi Reflections, your memories and reflections on this important day.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Diana. Mehera Baba stated, avatar periods are like the springtide of creation. They bring a new release of power, a new awakening of consciousness, a new experience of life, not merely for a few, but for all. Would everybody please mute if you haven't already muted? And we will go on to the next part of our program, which is the very first video we're going to see. We'll be sharing several music videos today that you can join along with at home. Just remember to keep your mic muted. This first one features Satchitanand, the chant that was sung by Baba from the 50s onwards, and especially on 7th February 1969 in the tomb just before Baba's body was interred. Satchitananda.
Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Baba Vigyananda Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda 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 Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda 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 Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Satchidananda Paramananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda Mehera Baba Vigyananda
Satchitananda, a beautiful chant Baba gave his lovers to sing for him. Wilson will now share an account of Mehera Baba's dropping of his body. It is based on the pamphlet entitled Mehera Baba's Last Sahavas, written by Dr. Hoshang Barucha. Wilson.
A telegram was sent worldwide on January 31st, 1969. Avatar Meher Baba dropped his physical body at 12:15 on 31st January 1969 at Meherazad to live eternally in the hearts of his lovers. Beloved Baba's body will be interred at Mehrabad, Arangowan in the tomb he had ordered to be built long ago. In the latter half of January, Baba's health started deteriorating fast. His physical suffering and pain had become more and more evident. On January 30th, Baba's body shook with severe spasms. In the early morning of January 31st, the spasms continued, and his body shook intensely with pain. The medicines given to him brought no relief. Just after 12, Dr. Goodheart gave him an injection, and Baba said, "Do not forget that I am God." At 2:15 p.m., Baba's entire physical framework shook with severe spasms as he sat on a surgical bed with his back and his head raised. His arms flexed, his mouth closed tight, his respiration suddenly stopped. Baba became motionless. Erich opened Baba's mouth and began breathing into his lungs forcibly. This mouth-to-mouth resuscitation was carried on for 30 minutes until Erich collapsed on the floor out of sheer exhaustion. 3 doctors present at this time examined Baba's heart and eye reflexes. It was pronounced that life was extinct. The avatar had dropped his body. For 7 days, Baba's body was kept in the tomb at Mehrabad Hill for thousands of his lovers to take his darshan. Men, women, and children, the rich and the poor, Easterners and Westerners, people from all castes, creeds, and religions converged atop Mehrabad Hill to see for one last time their crucified beloved. Meher Baba was interred on the 7th day. In September 1954, Baba stated, "I am the Ancient One, and you will all love me more and more after my body is dropped, and will see me as I really am."
Thank you, Wilson. 12:15 is such an important time for all of us to remember. Next, we will hear from Peter Nordeen, who is going to share his thoughts about Amartithi. Peter.
Those who had the great fortune of time in Meher Baba's physical presence knew him and loved him as the perfect human being. They had developed a very high mental discipline because of that love. Their focus was always on how to please him. What does he need next? Naturally, they always wanted to make him comfortable, especially as he grew older and his body was so badly worn from all the years of effort and suffering. And Baba would allow them some comfort in giving him some comfort, but foremost was always the need of his work. He once commented, "My work is more important than my very being." Baba's life's mission was an endless string of labors for diverse groups in different ways from the very beginning to help them individually, collectively, and universally. All these periods of external activity were always interspersed with the internal work of his seclusion on the higher planes of consciousness, which was even more strenuous for him. He explained his being God's avatar like this: although I am present everywhere eternally, in my formless infinite state, from time to time, I take form. This taking of the form and leaving it is termed my physical birth and death. In this sense, I am born, and in this sense, I die when my universal work is finished. You know how Baba's body was adversely affected by the strain of his work and the physical suffering he passed through during his whole life. After the second car collision in India, his ambulatory abilities became less and less, and his traveling was gradually limited to Pune and residing at Mehera. During the final years, he increased his seclusion work. In April, May, and June of 1968, he went through the last period of seclusion at Guru Prasad in Pune. That was a period when he asked his lovers from all through the world to take part in repeating the universal prayer and the prayer of repentance once a day out loud. As those years went on, fewer and fewer people were allowed to come to Mehera and to Guru Prasad because his seclusion work had increased so much, and he focused primarily on that. On the 1st of July of 1968, he returned to Mehera, and he began a period of most intense seclusion. He called the exclusion seclusion, when even most of his close disciples were not allowed to see him. All during this period, he said, because of the intensity of his seclusion, to maintain the link with his physical body, he would hammer his thighs with his fist. And that had made his thighs like stone, Devonley said. Bao tells the story once. When he was doing night watch with Baba, he was thinking about, because he was in charge of the Hindi correspondence, he was thinking about Baba's lovers. Baba asked him, of course, what are you thinking? Nothing, Baba. Tell me. Well, you know, your lovers, they don't want anything from you. They would just like to have an opportunity of seclusion. Have an opportunity of darshan. But you remain in seclusion, and they never get to see you. Baba said, what will they see? This old broken down body? This is the real thing. This will give them real sight of me. That seclusion work went on in July, and on the 30th of July in 1968, Baba declared, my work is done. It is completed 100% to my satisfaction. Yet he continued to do the seclusion work in his bedroom at Mehera. A few weeks later, he explained that there were a few touches he had to give to his completed work before he released it and setting it in motion. He gave an analogy concerning this. He once explained, I'm like a commander on a battlefield who has been mortally wounded, and I'm falling to my certain death. But as I stumble, I see some ants there on the ground. So in order to avoid the ants, I make an effort to make a few more steps. Erich remarked after Baba dropped his body, these ants represent truth-loving humanity. Those who may not have a connection to a master, but they want truth. They seek truth for them. At that time, Baba had remarked that his work would begin to manifest by the end of September. He composed a few lines at the time. One of them was, you recall, "Coming, coming, coming came, tired of this illusion game. But there was this thing about darshan. So on October 13th in 1968, there was that meeting called at Mehera, and a number of the men from around India were called to participate in that. And that is where he informed them that there would be a darshan program the following summer, April and May of 1969 at Guru Prasad. And considering his physical condition, they were apprehensive of his body standing that strain, but he told them, "It will be easy for me to give my lovers my darshan, so you are not to feel concerned about it. I will give darshan reclining, and that will be no strain on my body. It will be different from all previous darshans, and it will be the last in silence. Although I will be reclining, I will be very strong. My physical condition now is because of my work, but by then my work will be complete, and my exaltation will be great. A very poor man winning a rich lottery can become so excited over his fortune that he collapses and dies. But my fortune will be in my work being finished and in the knowledge of its certain results. But my exaltation will not cause my collapse, it will be my glory." The meeting went on, different things. Padre made that remark, now it's time to close the shop before that meeting. You remember that? After all those years, Padre was with Baba from just about the very beginning. He made that comment, "Baba, it's enough now. Why don't you close the shop?" And Baba said, "You don't understand a thing. I'm just about to open the shop." And he reminded them then, at that time, he made this comment during that meeting, "For years I've been telling you the time is getting nearer and nearer. The time is very near. But today I say, the time has come. Remember this." He was giving hints. Francis wrote this, the following month. A few people would have the opportunity to see Baba then. After all, he said his work was completed. There was an opening then. A few people would be allowed to come and see Baba. Some people would write to those people who visited. He said, "Be sure to come next summer. I'll be giving darshan." Some people wrote, "Baba, we'd like to come and see you." Not necessary. Come next, you'll see me come next summer. Francis wrote this about this period, though. The 3 years of intense work and seclusion had had an untold effect upon his body, and a faint reflection of this on us caused a deep depression among us. But beloved Baba warned us that this was disobeying his order to be always cheerful in his presence. We've seen the last film of Baba. It was Mehera's birthday, Dar and Amrit's engagement, and finally their wedding the next day. Franny was there. And everybody seemed cheerful to see Baba. During that last gathering of a few hundred people, Baba gave final comments and directions to a few people. But they never took it as that's the end. They just thought, how nice of Baba. Money starts now in one of the final letters. Despite these assurances, Baba's health became worse, but the symptoms were completely confusing to the doctors we called from Bombay and Pune. His blood urea was so high that the doctor said usually an ordinary man in such a condition would go into a coma, but there was not even the least sign of mental confusion or the faintest trace of uremic odor. Similarly, when muscular spasms were occurring, when a specialist from Bombay examined him, he asked why he had been called because there were no symptoms at all when he was there. Baba's condition was quite normal. To our eyes, Baba's condition continued to deteriorate, and we wanted to take him to Pune so that further tests could be carried out, but he refused to go and warned us that we should not try to take him against his wish. He said, if you want me to drop my body now, then take me to Pune. My condition has no medical grounds at all. It is due purely to the strain of my work. Do not call the doctors again until I tell you. And so, helpless before his will, we had to obey. Baba continued to prepare them in different ways. Most importantly was Mehera. And from time to time, he would encourage her, be brave. I want you to be courageous. Be brave. And all the women, Mandali, women around Mehera, that was their responsibility to make sure that Mehera was secure and well cared for. Erich's responsibility was to take care of Mehera and Mani. On the 24th of January, Baba gave Bao those orders to write his biography and some other points. But Bao told him, Baba, tell me later. It's too much strain. Baba just, you'll do it. Adi had been conditioned for the last few years in a very unique way, interesting way, fitting for him. And that is that he was excluded and taunted often. He would come to Maharazad to deliver the mail. Baba would make sure that he was stopped to remain at the gate. Sometimes he would send Baba out there. Take the mail and tell him to go away. Firmly, you tell him, leave. Adi was Baba's disciple from the age of 17. met Upasi Maharaj at the age of 15. His whole family gave everything. Then he got this treatment. But after Baba dropped the body, he had strength. He had the strength to deal with the world and deal with all of these things. Mani continues. Over the last days, Baba's body manifested severe spasms, and he told us, "This is my crucifixion." And that could be a hint. But on the other hand, Baba had said, Christ was crucified once on the cross. I am crucified every day. So Baba's explanations, his words, whatever he says, we don't understand. So Mani explained it like this. Yes, looking back on it, yes, on one hand, he gave us so many hints. He revealed so many things. But on the other hand, he obscured these things so that they could only understand that after he dropped his body, he was letting them know that it was coming. Two days before he dropped his body, he told us to call the other doctors. That's Dr. Grant. Dr. Grant came from Pune the next morning on the 30th and said he could do nothing until further tests were done so that a definite diagnosis could be arrived at. And this could only be done if Baba went to Pune. Baba gestured to him, "My time has come." He had that evening. Bao writes about that evening. The next morning, many of the Mandali were in his room during that period. Baba made the remark, "Maya wants to kill me, but I will win." Mani told the story of them being there, and Duncan and Goher were just totally exasperated. Had done everything they could do. Baba made the comment to them, "Just imagine all this," and the gesture was all of what I had to go through in my life. All this was only for speaking the one word. Imagine. He also told them, none of this is Gohar's fault. Nobody will blame her for what has to happen. That was one of his final messages. One of the last things he did was to have Alba bring the board of consider his favorite couplets from Hafiz. Alba brought the board and would recite it in Persian and English. That board is also in Baba's cabin on the hill at Meherabad. Befitting a fortunate slave, carry out every command of the master without any question of why and what. About what you hear from the master, never say it is wrong, because, my dear, the fault lies in your own incapacity to understand him. I am the slave of the master who has released me from ignorance. Whatever my master does is of the highest benefit to all concerned. Now, Mani wrote this also after Baba had dropped his body. Being wiser after the event, we now see deeper significance in the message that beloved Baba had dictated on 17th January 1968, his message for the 43rd anniversary of his silence to be released on the 10th of July. But it was not released, and Baba did not have any other message sent out in its place. Feeling that perhaps it was meant to be released now, I give it here. Divine Father, help your beloved Son to carry out all your work this year, for July of this year will mark the last year of his silence. Okay, I'll tie it up here. What Baba did release on Silence Day was something called the Meher Baba's, Avatar Meher Baba's last warning. It was to settle a dispute in one of the Andhra groups, which has become a message for all his followers, all his lovers. I'm running out of time now, I hear. So I won't go much further, but it's important for us to understand that Baba's silence was released when he dropped his body, but there are two clues in what we talked about. One, he said it would be the last darshan given in silence. So for those people who say he dropped his body, his silence was released when he dropped his body, well, that's not necessarily true. He didn't, his silence, pardon me, he broke his silence when he dropped his body. That's not necessarily true if he said it was the last darshan given in silence and it was after that. On the other hand, the message from July says that it was the last year of his silence. Enigmatic. But one thing is for sure, in that previous explanation about his avatarhood, Baba did say he drops his body when his work is completed. Part of his work was the timing of the breaking of his silence. It doesn't have to have an immediate effect in the gross world, because this gross world is most deeply steeped in illusion. So we shouldn't interpret timing of manifestation in the gross world. I want to close with this one statement from Mani. To have what one wants is to have everything. To us, being with Baba was everything, and we had it. Staying with God and sharing his humanness was such completeness for us that it has left nothing besides to want for. We're not looking for any happenings to manifest. We are simply waiting for his will to manifest in whatever forms he may choose, that he might keep on carrying it out with our imperfect obedience in his perfect grace.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much, Peter. And thank you, Baba, for opening the wine shop. Just hearing those words out loud again, they had quite an impact. Thank you. We will see now with a video that takes us directly to Baba's Samadhi and features the women mandali singing the 7 names of God, which was composed by Baba. Following this video, we will observe silence for a few minutes, remembering Baba's dropping of the body at 12:15 on 31st January, 1969.
Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu Hari Para Matama Allah Ahuramas God Yasadanhu.
And now we'll have a few moments of silence. Beloved Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
How lovely to look at Baba's photo with those divine names lingering in our ears. Evie will now share some history about the connection between Meher Baba and the song Begin the Beguine, featuring excerpts from Mani's book, The Joyous Path. Evie.
Jai Baba, each one of you. Begin the Beguine. Baba had given clear instructions to Erich over the years about taking his body to his tomb in Mehrabad when he dropped the body. He also told Erich that the recording Begin the Beguine should be played. Mani also remembered Baba giving this instruction, but just in case Baba would happen to drop the body while traveling elsewhere, Erich carried the lyrics in his wallet for years. The song was first heard by Baba and the women in 1939 in Bangalore. They had a wind-up gramophone. Baba's disciples from the West would send him some of the latest hits of popular music. Baba particularly liked this song. When he went on must trips in Bangalore that year, he told the women to learn the song while he was away. The women had some difficulties learning it, but finally they accomplished the task. And upon Baba's return, they sang it for him, and he was pleased. Sometime in 1968, Mani realized that their 1939 recording was misplaced. So she asked her brother Adi to bring another recording from London. He brought the Hutch Hutchinson recording, which was different from the first recording. Mani played it for Baba, and he particularly liked this version. He said the singer had dard in his voice, meaning pain and longing. Mani kept the new recording in her cabinet during the whirlwind activities of December 1968. So as Baba would have it, when he dropped the body, the recording was easily found. Erich reminded Mani to play the song, and she played it 3 times in Baba's room in the hours before beloved Baba's form was taken to Mehrabad, where she played it numerous times over the next 7 days. Here are some of Mani's words from the joyous past. Although we started out from Mehrabad on that Friday evening with hearts numbed and empty, our hands had been occupied in doing the things that the beloved wanted us to do. In the midst of many practical details that Erich was seeing to, he reminded me to take along our gramophone and the record of Begin the Beguine. Erich said that Baba had told him many times over the years to play this song by his side when he dropped his body. And so on that night of 31st January, and the next day, 7 times I played the song by his side. At first in the cabin, where his body rested for a while, and later in the tomb. And while the song played, it seemed to convey to us his message that this was not an end, but the beginning of his completed work bearing fruit. A day before dropping the body, even while the movement of his fingers brought on a renewed spasm, Baba told us, all this, all that I have been through all along, has been a preparation for the word, or just the one word. And with a quizzical smile, he added, just imagine. Now, let's listen to the recording and imagine how hearing this song touched the hearts of all who heard it in those hours and days immediately after beloved Baba dropped the body. The song's perspective is as if Baba is singing it to us. Jai Baba.
When they begin the beguine, it brings back the sound of music so tender. It brings back a night of tropical splendor. It brings back a memory evergreen. I'm with you once more under the stars, and down by the shore an orchestra playing, and even the palms seem to be swaying when they begin the beguine. To live it again is past all endeavor, except a tune touches my heart, and there we are swearing to love forever, promising never, never to part. Moments divine, what rapture serene, till clouds came along to disperse the joys that we tasted. And now when I hear people curse the chance that they wasted, I know but too well what they mean. So don't let them begin the beguine. Let the love that was once a fire remain an ember. Let it sleep like the dead desire only remember when they begin the beguine. Oh yes, let them begin the beguine, make them play till the stars that were there before return above you, till you whisper to me once more, darling, I love you. And we suddenly knew what heaven we're in when they begin the beguine. When they begin the beguine.
Begin the Beguine, a song with an eternal meaning. We have Bruce now, who will read I Am Not This Body, excerpts from Bal Kalchuri's Avatar of the Age, Meher Baba Manifesting. Bruce.
During the night of January 30th, 1969, Meher Baba gestured to me on 3 separate occasions. Remember this, I am not this body. Baba had often told me this before, but when he repeated this to me just hours before he dropped his body, it was with a force which I cannot describe. The last words have sustained me through these years without him. They've made me feel his presence. His words have given my heart the wine of his manifestation. Avatar Meher Baba often declared, I am not this body that you see. Meher Baba's body was a vehicle of his universal work, and that work was to make humanity experience divinity. Humanity is destined to experience his divinity. His divine manifestation will be experienced during the awakening and spiritual upheaval, which is already happening as a result of his universal work. The dropping of Meher Baba's physical body signifies the stretching of the bow. The shooting of his arrow signifies the release of the force of his universal work. As the arrow strikes with all its force, the world falls unconscious with pain, but will reawaken to find him. Meher Baba's universal work affects every level of consciousness, and his arrow strikes deep in the heart of humanity. As a result of his work, individuals are gaining new consciousness. This new consciousness has been gained because his arrow is now in their hearts. The whole world is the target of his arrow. Avatar Meher Baba is not the physical body. He is God, and he has come down on earth to manifest his own divinity. His divinity is the real thing which he gives to the world, and those who experience him as God have his real darshan. A day will come when the whole world will be aware of him and will awaken to his divinity. As his arrow remains deep in the heart of humanity, it will be the total manifestation of his divine love on earth.
Thank you, Bruce. For our last reading today, Susan will read Mehera's first Amartithi message from 1970. Susan.
With a heart still laden with grief, Mehera carried out beloved Baba's wish for her to remain brave and gave this message on the first Amartithi in 1970. O beloved one, our beloved Avatar Meher Baba, we, your loving children, have gathered today at Mehrabad to fill our hearts with your love on this most sacred hill on earth, where your man form rests. We have also come to pay our homage to you and to greet you in the hearts of your lovers. May we be worthy of your very dear love for us. Your compassion is our strength, which sustains us. Your love is our life. It is yours. May we hold on to your Daman in complete surrender to your will. Dear Meher pilgrims, we are all gathered here in love to pay homage to Avatar Meher Baba, our divine beloved, who loves us more than we can ever love ourselves. Let us forever say his Jai. Not only say it with our lips, but live it in our hearts, so that our lives become a living testimony to his victory. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Thank you, Susan. Such words from Mehera, who was still experiencing such grief, but carrying out Baba's words to her to remain courageous and brave. Jai Baba. We will close this part of today's program with a music video of Baba's beloved God prayer, music composed by Asheville's William Stanhope. Now we can all mute and sing along with ourselves, because we will be singing, some of us, with ourselves. Asheville singers and Music Sabbath singers. Beloved God.
How fortunate we are to love him. Let us conclude this part of today's program by calling out Baba's J. If you would like to join us, please unmute yourself now. Avatar.
Baba ki jai.
Avatar.
Meher Baba ki jai.
Meher Baba ki jai.
Jai Baba. Oh, thank you, Baba. Thank you.
It has been so nice sharing this time with you all, and we would like to open up the room now for Amartithi Reflections. So if you would like to share a memory or a thought about this important day, please raise your hand digitally and I will call on you. I'm looking for hands.
I'm gonna go when I do. I'll watch this for a while. Don't turn us off.
Any reflections? Debbie?
Okay, the reason I knew how to raise my hand is because I practiced ahead of time. And you have to go where it says reaction and then reaction again, and then it shows you how you can raise your hand. Anyway, I'll do a real quick one. I'll never forget being at Mehera one time for Amartithi and coming across a friend just passing each other by. And she said to me something I'll never forget. She said, you know, you can really feel the godness of Baba at Amartithi. And I knew exactly what she meant. It was sort of like what Wilson read to us at the very beginning, because those 15 minutes of silence at the top of the hill, where you look around and see people from every kind of stature, rich, poor. I remember seeing an old village lady walk up the hill, one tiny step at a time with a walking stick. Her body was literally 90 degrees, and she made the effort to be up there for those 15 minutes of silence. And then seeing the rickshaw driver, seeing the woman that would have been a princess, except for, the British came in and they took away royalty or whatever it was. And just seeing people from every kind of country, Russia, China, everything, all, and seeing rickshaw drivers, the police who are on duty there, seeing them all willfully and willingly keeping silence for those 15 minutes. And the only thing you could hear from those 20 or 30,000 people were dogs barking, birds, a child yelp, and perhaps a cough here or there. But everybody was united in their observance of the avatar, and they made the effort. So I'll never forget how that feels. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Debbie. Elaine.
Yes, hello to everyone. I just wanted to thank Peter and Debbie and everyone who contributed to this wonderful presentation. I completely enjoyed it. I felt Baba very much. Thank you all.
Thank you, Elaine. We have Corinne now. Where did she go? Well,
you're muted, Corinne.
Oh, that's where she went. Please unmute.
Okay. When I was in Mehera at Amartithi, I did make it up the hill for the 12:15 silence. But most of the time I was down in clinic. And it was maybe 11 or 11:30 when a friend came by and said, "Have you been to the tomb yet?" I said, "No." She said, come on. So we hustled on up, and Adi looked at us and he said, "If there's anyone who hasn't been in the tomb yet, please come to the front of the line." So we scooted on up to the front and took our obedient split second in the tomb, even though everybody was going to get through for the second time. And I came out and it felt so good. I said, "Let's go again."
Thank you, Corinne. Yes, the samadhi is very attractive. It keeps bringing us back. If we can't be there in person, in spirit. Now, Judy. Yes, Judy.
Jai Baba, everyone. For me, Amartithi has been the most important day of my life since January 31st, 1969. I had been a student in Japan in 1967 and 68. And in February of 68, I got an inner message that it was time to go to India and find a word I'd never heard before, find my spiritual master. I loved school, I loved Japan, and I knew I needed to follow that. The very, very short edition is that I dropped out of the university and hitchhiked through Southeast Asia during the Vietnam War to get to India. Adventures, anyway, I would have to hide at night because the guerrillas were, 50 feet down the road. I mean, it was really, I was in the middle of the war. Again, the short version is that Baba didn't get me to India that time. He brought me back to America, to Berkeley, where I was a student in those years. But I was searching when I came back. I was going to Krishnamurti lectures and dancing with the in San Francisco with, anyway, I was looking and looking. I was seriously looking for my spiritual master. And I began my senior year at Berkeley in the January of '69. And I still remember the bench I was sitting on when I picked up the Daily Cal, the school newspaper. And there was a 1-inch article in that said, Avatar Meher Baba has dropped his body today to live in the hearts of his lovers. And I pointed at it to myself and I said, that's the one. That is who I have been looking for all over the world. And since that day, what can we say? All of you love Baba too. Center of my life, the joy of my life. And, much later, he got me to Meherabad, where I had the great good fortune to live and attempt to learn how to be in his service while there, and meet many of you, most especially Debbie and Peter, for all of those years. So it's a great joy to me that another Amartithi, and so for me, it's my 55th. And I am thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba. Jai Meher Baba.
Jai Baba, Judy. What a wonderful story. And we'll have to have you back sometime for the long version. Sure.
It's quite interesting.
I have no doubt. We have Chris now. Yes, Chris.
My one and only time to go to Amartithi was in 1981. And while I was there, I was given the opportunity to work there during the Amartithi and to be at the door of the Samadhi and usher people in and then make sure that they came out after their short little brief time. So I think I probably did that for half an hour or an hour was my allotted time to do that. So all the time I was looking inside at people taking their darshan. And after a while, it was like, I felt like I was standing in front of a blast furnace. It was Baba's love was coming out so powerfully, and watching all of these people have their moment in there was, it was really something. It was very, very powerful experience of Baba's love. Very grateful for that. Wonderful time. And thank you, Debbie, and the rest of the organizers for this very, very touching program. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you, Chris. Susan, I'm so glad you raised your hand because I know you're going to have something really fine to hear.
Chris's story just reminded me. I was only at Meherabad one time for Amartithi. I got there on the 30th. This was in 2006. And I walked into the MPR, there's Debbie. And we'd been, long, complicated story. I was supposed to be, I was like 8 or 12 hours later than I was expected to be there. And it was like 8 o'clock or something. It was really late when we got there. And Debbie said, well, I signed you up for tomb duty from 10 to 12 tonight, but you don't have to go. You're really tired. And I said, yes, I do. And I said, okay, just let me run upstairs, change my clothes. Peter took me down to the Samadhi on his motorcycle. And I got there in time, and I spent my first 2 hours at Meherabad ushering people around in the Samadhi. I was right outside the door. I was like, at that point, I was almost too numb to take it in. But nonetheless, there it was. Eternal. Thank you, Debbie, for your role in that.
And what day was it on the 31st besides Amartithi?
Oh, right. It was my 56th birthday.
What an entrance you made to Mehera.
Yeah, it was very dramatic.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah. The director was in full action there. Yeah. So
Yeah, so happy birthday, Susan.
thank you. Thank you.
Very fine story. Thanks, Susan. J. Baba.
J. Baba.
We have Jill now. Yes, Jill.
Well, this is one of those stories that I could make very long. But oddly, what comes to mind is Amartithi, 1969. I'd heard about Mehera Baba from Charlie Morton, but I was basically testing out what I heard to see what was true and what wasn't at that time. It wasn't until Rick Chapman arrived and talked about Baba that I realized. So I was ignorant, but was going through a major thing in my family from a very big clan of aunts and uncles and family friends. And my cousin Chuck had been, he should have been in college, but he had dropped out due to some things, and he got drafted into the army, and he got sent to Vietnam, and he was only there for 2 weeks when he was killed. Now he had 2 older brothers and a cousin very close, and we'd all grown up together. This was a huge grief for my family. And so my first Amartithi, the memories I have of knowing about Baba, of knowing he dropped his body, and yet not understanding who he was, of feeling a sense of loss and grief at that time, which is recorded in the journal I kept. And so that was the first experience. And it was later in India that in one of these odd contradictions that Baba gives us, it was because of Mehera's deep grief. It was like being able to almost pour the family's grief to Baba through the grief that one felt through Mehera, and through the efforts of everyone to keep her cheered up, and through Baba's presence and love that came through so strongly, that finally I began to experience the alleviation to the family loss, to where the Baba's presence and love became stronger. So that's my story.
Thank you for that very touching story, Jill. J. Baba. So I don't see any more hands, but now I do. 2. And we have Betty. Yes, Betty.
My one trip to Amartithi was in 1999, and I was so high that I wrote my one and only poem, which I have dragged out to most groups, the Arti group, my other groups, but you folks, most of you haven't heard it, so so I'll give it a shot. And our dear friend on Arti, Fred Demeo, made it into a song, which I won't try and sing. But anyway, here's the poem. Blue Moon Amartithi, 1999. Jubilation, Jubilee, it's Mehera's Jamboree. They came by bullock, bus, and plane, by jeep and tractor, truck and train. We're here, all shouting with glee, old friends greeting, soul hearts again meeting. Then up the hill they went, to Heart's home, for time was time with the beloved. A village grew on the path to his door. Mehera tea, Mehera flowers, Mehera sweets, Mehera's wine, free for all. Then celebration, jubilee, music, dancing, hearts on fire, joyful hearts, quiet hearts, baby hearts, grandma and grandpa hearts, young lovers' hearts, all his, all through the night. Meher's light shone radiant over the wide Indian sky from the heart of Meherabad to hearts of his lovers everywhere on Amartithi night. Then morning, the last musician sang. At noon, all hearts were silent. 15 minutes communion with the one who brought us. Finally, the lovers were leaving. Beddings rolled, belongings gathered, babies and baggage toted downhill, hearts full, last embraces. Lovers headed home. The village was cleared, the pandal came down. The jeeps, the bullocks drove back into town. The hill now quiet, his presence remains. That was Amartithi. Next year, come again. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba, Betty.
Poor Diana's heard this.
No, not poor me. And when Fred put it to music, it's, I don't know, which was that rock and roll? I mean, it had quite a sound. It was surprising in its tone and wonderful. Coming from a wonderful poem that you've created, Betty, with Baba, Jai Baba.
Well, Diana, Fred sees that as a challenge, so he might play it again.
Okay, just raise his hand. He's put him up there. But we have Richard next. Your turn, Richard.
I'm unfamiliar to most of you in this meeting. It's a big meeting. I got in a little late. I had intended to be, but in the last few years, I've always been physically competent. And in the last few years with aging and not working anymore, I've just sort of slipped down that slope of what am I here for? You know, of course. But so my story goes all the way back to Denver, Colorado. And basically, I'll keep this really short, but I didn't have any ambition to do anything in the world at all. I loved childhood. I didn't have any responsibilities. And it was semi-idyllic. The bottom line was that was all fine. Once I realized at about 16 or 17 that I had to start being responsible, I didn't want to take that path. And so I started looking around for answers. And I didn't even know what I was looking for. I had no clue. You know, I looked in the intellectual stuff, but a little philosophy here and there, psychology. But none of that worked. I did find a girlfriend. And pretty much immediately, her mother shut that down. So then I was completely out of all options for me. So I took the quickie one. My mother paid for college. I went to Fort Collins, Colorado, and I dropped out. A year later, I went back to be with a college buddy named David Bradley, and we were just sort of sampling drugs, nothing serious, but suddenly in the school newspaper, there was an announcement. Well, there's these two guys that say you can't find God in a pill. And so Rick Chapman, Alan Cohen showed up. We went to that big crowd, went later to a little room and saw some pictures. They weren't selling anything. We finally got some discourses. Excuse me, my dog's barking. Hold on. And I was walking across the campus about a week later, opening one of these turquoise little books with Baba's photo, and suddenly a wave of something just came over me. And I now call it Baba's Darshan. So it was like late October of 1968. So Baba hadn't dropped the body yet. But I knew he just infused me with this, I am the reality you're looking for. And that was the beginning for me. And, but shortly after that, I had a drug overdose thing happen. So I was really sort of out of it. Through a string of events that we know was Baba, I was like a fish on a string. And from Denver, in that state, he slowly pulled me through Wyoming and the oil fields all the way to Manhattan in New York City. And there, I remembered something David had written to me. He went on a flight with the Society for Avatar Mehera Baba to the 69 Darshan. I never had any plans. This was all just Baba doing his thing. And one day I thought, oh, I need a copy of God Speaks. So I called the society and went down there. And a little later, Anna Rosa allowed me to stay. And under the influence, of course, Dr. Kenmore and Anna Rosa, I was really, drawn in. And I left New York City when Dr. Kenmore died. It was like the big magnet, the big magnetic field was no longer there. So I went back to Denver, and Anna Rosa called me and said, would you like to go to the Amartithi, in 72? So flew there to New York. On my birthday, we flew out of New York to, of course, series of 707 flights, right? All the way to Bombay. And we had a chartered bus take us to Ahmednagar. I remember being in the bus, rolling in at about dusk. And it was before the Amartithi, of course. And I don't know if it was dust, or I always thought of it as the big fire that came off the planet where Baba was nearby, just like a radiant glow, the Tej or whatever it is called. But anyway, the only other, I still remember approaching the threshold of the tomb, and the thought that happened when I start to bow my head, and I thought, should I kiss this thing? What am I doing? And I thought, I got to do it. So I kissed the threshold and went in, and we had a few days there because it wasn't real busy, it wasn't the big thing today. But the only other thing that happened is Pete Townsend visited that year, which everybody pretty much knows. And funny story, and this will be it, but I hadn't had a bowel movement for like 4 days or something, or 5, I don't know. It was kind of weird. And so I went to Anna Rosa. She came back with this gigantic, must have been a homeopathic pill. And I took that. And so about an hour later, there were 3 big toilet stalls right on top of the hill. And you climbed up the steps, and all of the doors were closed. And for me, this was like, it's right now, man, I don't know what was in that pill. And so it just so happened that Pete Townsend was standing there looking at me going, what's wrong? And I said, I got to go now. And he climbed the steps of all 3 of these and pounded on the door and said, we have an emergency. And so one of the doors flew open and I went in, and that was that. So there's more, but that's much later. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you, Richard. That was very good. When I say I don't see hands, sometimes they pop up. Are there going to be more hands? There we go. There's Mehera Kiran. Jai Baba Mehera.
Jai Baba, then I was hopping and doing other thing, but I heard Peter Nordeen's message. So I hope I'm not coming out of my turn now. So is it time we are sharing our things?
Yes, speak.
Okay, so right between yesterday and today in this Amartithi, I had written something. Okay, I want to read. Thanks for this chance. And they ask, what is the difference between a Baba liker and a Baba lover? Earlier, I used to cry silently. Now I cry openly. I lost in every friend and found you in every self. The other day I was meditating on your silence, and then in my dream I saw you speak. Whatever that is, it was nice seeing you. We were reading your new life and could not make head or tail of what you did there. Whatever that is, our every step is in your way now. They poured some Baba wine in Baba Zoom these days. The new life feels so light and fun in every way. My poem is getting out of shape now. Whatever that is, I will read it anyway. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you for that, Mehera. Okay.
Maybe
well,
Mehera would read it again? No hands.
That we can keep going. The hands might come up.
Okay, there we go.
I think I know what this is. Is this Eva or Fred? Or both?
It's Fred. He's
Okay. This is Betty's poem. Betty's poem, right? We're gonna hear it again. Fred's version.
Diana,
take on it.
Diana, is there any possibility that Peter could share what he was going to share and his time was cut off about the final, the last warning?
Well, Peter, think about it, and after Fred plays, perhaps you would like to.
I had nothing to share about the last warning. I only wanted to mention that instead of that final message, which Monty had printed in the family letters, one of the last, maybe the last family letter, instead there was a demand for the last warning, Avatar Mehera Baba's last warning, and that's what was issued for Silence Day in 1968. So we had the last message that was given after Baba dropped the body, and the last warning on 68 Silence Day. That's all.
Thank you, Peter. Okay, back to Fred. And it's Betty's poem put to music by Fred.
Okay. So this is my take on Betty's song.
They came by jeep and tractor, truck and train. We're here, shouting they found places to sleep, and old and new friends agree. They washed their hay, they walked up the hill, 2 hearts home for the time with the master. They set up a village on the path to his door. May have tea, may have flowers, may have sweet, may have wine, oh, may have wine, yeah, may have wine free for all. Then the celebration, music, dancing, hearts on fire, joyful heart, quiet heart, baby's heart, grandma and grandpa heart, God lover's heart, all his and all throughout the night. May his light shone radiant across the wide Indian sky, from the heart of Mehera Baba to the hearts of his lovers everywhere. It was Amartithi night. Then came the Babas began to leave. Bedding rolled up, belongings gathered, babes and baggage toted downhill. With full hearts and last embraces, lovers headed home. The village was cleared, the pendle came down. The jeeps, the bullocks drove back into town. The hill is quiet now, but his legend still remains. That was Amartithi. Next year, come again for jubilation, jubilee. We're here, shouting we might find some old and new friends to greet. Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
I want to thank everybody who's been here today. And Chris and Ann Barker were the ones who instigated all this. And Diana was the anchor that held all this together. So I just want to say, this has really been a lift for me today. I don't know, I'm crying now, but it's just been great. I wanted to say thank you, Diana, and thank you to everybody, each and every one of Baba in us. Baba. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba to you all. What a wonderful time together.
Yes, thanks to all of you, to Peter, to Debbie, to Diana, and everyone. It's been a delight to share virtually Baba's 55th Amartithi. Thank you.